Hey everyone, Michelle Seidling here with another episode of Food Experience Unplugged. Today we're talking about food as medicine and food as recovery from various illnesses or addictions. Here to help us do that is Dianne Racek, a health and life coach at Panacea Holistic Coaching. Okay. Dianne Racek, welcome to Food Experience Unplugged.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. Tell us a little bit about what exactly do we mean when we say food as recovery to begin with?
Well, when I think of food as recovery, I think that people need to understand that having the basics of eating and as far as like recovering themselves from addiction, if they can understand that, if they can grow with that, they can actually really recover their lives. You have such a relationship with food all your life. And oftentimes people in recovery are trying to get their relationships right with themselves, with others, with life. And food starts with a basic way of getting yourself right with food. So it helps you to recover in the sense of that, you build this relationship again with food, and it's not as threatening as building with others. You don't feel like you did something wrong to the food. You can relate to it easier, and then it makes you easier to build relationships with others. And of course, it's important to how you eat, who you're being when you eat, what you're eating, when you're eating. All those plays into a part of making sure that you're getting what you need from the food, and recovering from the food as well. So if they start with the basic relationship that they have with food, because it's just them and the food, and they don't have to get overwhelmed with everything that's going on in their life. They can just focus on that and building that and making that as a stable foundation to change their life. Because food is used in social contexts, when they're, interacting with their family members, with others. And so it plays a great part in how we relate to life. So if they can get that relationship right, they can get the other relationships right. And the food itself is the nourishment that's going to help to heal them from the addictions of, drugs and alcohol, starting like with their adrenals, and their, overall like balancing of their body, their brain health, all those things play a role into how they can recover. The food itself is the nourishment to make them whole again. So if they can heal on the inside, they can heal on the outside. If they can feel better in their bodies and from everything that they've done to them, whether it be alcohol or drugs or anything else that's happened to them, that they can actually function as a person again.
Okay. Of all the different topics in food and life coaching, how did you focus in on recovery? How did you get to this point?
I wanted to do food and recovery because I know there are a lot of people who need help with food in general, but I feel like the people in recovery are, overlooked with that. They don't often get the help that they need. There's a lot of great programs out there, the 12-step programs, like even church programs, all kinds of programs that they have peer accountability, but and some of them work wonderful. Obviously they work, but I think there's also something missing for some people, and it could make the recovery easier with the food. So I saw that there was like a kind of gap there, and just from people I know in my own life who have went through trying to recover from addiction, and just you see it all around you. It's very epidemic now that people are addicted and they have a hard time getting off drugs or alcohol. So I feel like that it can actually prevent some of the addictions too if people are eating right. But it can also lead to recovery. So I wanted to kind of bridge the gap that was missing, and I feel like there's a great need for it, and they get overlooked, and I really wanted to help those people and reach out to them.
Okay. So is there, the food as recovery end of it, is it not well known or not well explored at this point?
I don't think it is. I think that there's some aspects of it, like there's like in Broken Brain series, they touch on how food can heal, but it doesn't specifically address in recovery to like, addictions. I mean, if you think about it, a person who's, who's addicted to, alcohol or drugs, they're not really eating very well. They're not, or eating much at all. They might be drinking a soda or, eating, McDonald's or junk food or whatever it is, but they're not really focused on eating good food. They're focused in on getting their high or getting their alcohol. That's what their priority. So when they want to recover, if they start with the basics, then the other stuff will follow. Like, small hinges swing big door. So recovery is a big door, but if you have the right hinge, it doesn't matter. That door will swing into recovery. And that's how I look at it. It's something small, but it's something big at the same time that it can really change their life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have any examples of how you've used food to kind of bridge that gap that you're talking about?
Well, when I have a client, the first thing is they choose a food that they liked as a kid or whatever. One of their favorite foods that they like. It could be their grandmother's apple pie or blueberries, whatever it may, something they like as sort of like a whole food that they like. And we start with that. We start, having them to eat foods that they actually like, because you have to give them a choice to make it a permanent recovery. If you just tell them what to eat, they're gonna. It's like anybody else and anything else. And especially someone who's been coming out of addictions. Like they don't want to be told what to do. They want to make their own choices. So we start with what they like to eat, and we also start with who they're being when they're eating. Are they rushing through it? Are they thinking about the food? How do they view their food? Embracing the food, loving the food, being grateful for the food. How they chew their food, how long they take the meal. Do they have everything they need for the meal? Is everything set up properly? It's kind of like getting back to the basics. Like if before you can actually really have a proper meal, you have to have all set up. You can't just throw it together. So you have the basics set up, and them being mindful of them being in the present moment and gaining understanding of their relationship to food. So it's like kind of a complete balance of what they need to recover. It's more like mindful eating and being very aware of what makes them feel good, what they're eating. Like if it's like, it's called like a magic plate power meal. So they have everything they need, like a good protein, leafy greens or vegetables, healthy fats, whole grains, legumes, but something that they create on their own. So they feel like it gives them some power back to themselves for recovery. And then they see how they feel after eating the meal, like 1 hour, 2 hours, later and they're journaling this so they can actually really get into it, not just thinking about it in their head, because, and they feel, they see how they feel through each meal, and they regain some of their power back, and they see if they have what kind of energy they have. It's because the food that you're putting into your body is making your life, it's really what makes you alive. And so if they can start getting that little piece of them back, they can actually change their whole life. So that's the start, the base, just learning the basics of eating again. Like it sounds so simple, like, well, don't people know how to eat? Most people don't. And especially in recovery, they don't, so.
Sure, definitely. So do you cover the food and eating aspect, or do you also are you certified to handle like the addiction end of it as well? Do you cover both aspects of the recovery?
Well, I recover. I basically cover the food aspect of it. I'm actually, basically getting a certification to help more with the addiction side too.
Okay, great. So at this point, you work with a lot of addiction recovery specialists and whatever that person needs for recovery.
Yeah, I work with other like coaches too, who are more like mental health coaches as well. Like I'm not I don't have the qualifications to handle that because at this point, but if someone's had come, like it's all, have come off the, drugs, I can help them.
So what are some successes that you've seen? Do you have any examples of success of people working through food and to be able to recover from various things?
Yes. Well, I had a client that she was basically she was off the drugs, but had been on heroin for a long time, and she had wanted to get back her relationship with her family, but her family didn't trust her, and at that point she was smoking, and she wasn't still smoking cigarettes. She wasn't doing the things that she needed to take care of her health, and she didn't really have a relationship with her family. And so we started out basically having her document what she would like to see her life like. And I noticed that, she, from her, what she had written down as her journal, that like she did like her relationship with just a basic with the food was not, was not good. I mean, she was just eating whatever. She would eat ramen noodles. She would eat Cheetos, she had no idea what to eat or how to eat. So I said, well, I know you want to get your relationship, with your family back, but let's try something different, because you've been trying all these things and nothing's been working for you to do it. And so why, what do you have to lose? So we started to basically get her relationship right with food, through a series of steps, starting with being mindful of what she's eating, picking one food that she liked. Like she liked apples, so she would start her day with having an apple, and slowly we built upon. She started incorporating more foods that she liked. She liked eating whole eggs. Then she started eating bone broth because it was a very simple thing for her to do. She started doing a warm water detox in the morning. So she just started adding these things, and she wasn't at first. She wasn't connecting with her family, but she started to connect with the food, and she started to feel good about herself again. And then as she went through the program, I told her, I said, now that you have a good relationship with the food, and you feel like you're more have a foundation for what to do, and with not just with that, she started changing her life. She ended up getting a job and everything, and so she felt more like a person again. And I said, why don't you invite one member from your family for coffee or something, just so you can have some time with them, see what she said. Oh no, they won't come. I said, just tell them what you've been doing and how you've changed, and what you're, and send them a picture of yourself, because she looked like a different person. So she had sent them a picture of herself and invited them for coffee, and they end up coming to meet her. And they also brought a couple, because they were so like they couldn't believe that how much she had changed, because she looked like a new person. And it was just the way she had presented herself through learning through the program about who she was and how food can change her. And then she ended up having, a great relationship with her family, some who her sisters she hadn't seen in 20 years.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
that is amazing. So is it, what do you think it is what is it about food that aids in that recovery?
Well, there's a couple different things that aid in the recovery with it. It's one that, they actually get to have something that they're in control of again, that they, it doesn't matter what other people think of them or how they view them. They have control of what they're eating and what they're putting into their body. And then, the food is recovering their body systems. I mean, it's making them whole again. It's healing their body from the inside, helping their, adrenals to be fixed, helping their overall nervous system to recover. and their brain health. They're just becoming wired differently. And so they have this new relationship with food, a better, stronger, healthier relationship with food. So since they could do that relationship, which is the basic relationship of your life. I mean, your food, your relationship with yourself and food is, like if you don't have that correct, you have no foundation for the rest of your life. You can't do anything if you're not eating right. People who have lifestyle diseases they have heart problems. There's the same thing with people who are trying to recover. They have to get that basic relationship right, and then they can get the other relationships right, because they have the tools to get that relationship right, and they feel empowered by what they have accomplished. Then they start to feel like that they actually can accomplish those things with the other people in their own life. They everything starts to kind of build together. How you do one thing is how you do another.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it kind of gives you that motivation. You've accomplished, the food aspect. They have the motivation to tackle other challenges with regard to their recovery.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And so that working with them, building that relationship with food, do you find it more instructive as far as, you're teaching, basic nutrition, or you're teaching different skill set? What skills are involved in that, in teaching them?
It's some giving them some nutritional background, but it's letting them make choices for themselves and making sure that they do action steps around that. It's the journaling, is making sure they have the proper things for the meal, making sure they're doing the meal timing, having a 20-minute meal versus like a 5-minute meal, planning their meals better, having the proper snacks if they're traveling or on the go, just making sure that they have everything prepared properly. Perhaps if they have stress or anxiety, we do a breathing exercise before they start the meal, just to kind of get them that relaxation response, because when you relax, the food is assimilated better into their body. That goes for anyone. Being grateful for the food, just and actually also part of it is writing letters to themselves of how they want to be, how they like, as if they are now and they would be like, so like their future version, but I am that person now, and not labeling themselves as an recovering addict, just saying, I am who I am, whoever, if they're a dancer or, a carpenter, whoever they strive to be. And then, journaling about writing letters to who they have, hurt in the process and how they feel about it now, just asking for forgiveness, even if they don't send the letter, it's just for their own, benefit, and saying hello, writing a letter, hello to recovery, goodbye to addiction, and how that's affected them, and just being like kind of like grateful for what has happened to them, up to now, and how they've gotten to where they are, just letting go of all the parts that they hurt. And then another part of the action steps is to surround themselves with people that they want to be like, so they can get out of the environment that they were in. They might not be able to move, but they can at least surround themselves with people that they strive to be, whether it's going to farmers markets or going to running races or triathlons. They don't have to necessarily participate in them, but just being around those people in healthier environments, instead of being around environments where they were once tempted to do things. Going, like, I find, so people like to, they like to drink alcohol. Go and find new friends that you can drink kombucha with, or something like, like that, or go on a picnic and have be outside in nature and have food with someone, or by themselves if they don't have anyone to go. Just doing something different, stopping those same patterns and same rituals that they were in before, because you need to replace it with something else, because they're not going to recover if they have the same patterns. So changing the patterns and putting new rituals into their life and day.
do you find that, is there kind of one of those aspects that most often comes into play, or does it depend on the individual circumstances?
Well, it does depend on the individual, but I find that the most important thing is getting yourself around people. Proximity principle. Getting yourself around people who are similar to what you would like to be. Not that you want to be them, because you have your own story, but just kind of so you around that same energy, those same qualities and traits, instead of being around people drinking and smoking and and doing all these crazy things. You're around people who are more like the qualities that you strive for as in your recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. And what are some resources that are particularly helpful in people who are going through recovery? Anything in particular?
Well, I mean, the first thing is to either find them a support network. Doesn't have to be family or friends, but and like I said, I don't most people are going to go to these the 12-step programs and things like that, but finding some place where it's like there's meetup groups that do hiking, something that's a little bit different than what you normally would think to do in recovery. So finding those support networks, and just start, if they were doing on their own, starting a journal about how they feel about everything from how they recovered, what happened to them in the process, and then obviously they could get a recovery coach as well, or a personal trainer, doing yoga, doing meditation. Any of these things can help. Obviously, if you have support, it's better than going it alone, especially in this case. But you don't always have that. But chance to do that. There are some programs, like usually in your local county, that might have some free programs. I don't know. Every county is different. My county has a lot of that stuff, and I actually volunteer for them too as well, to help in the recovery, coaching program. So there's a lot of things that people can do. I just recommend that going the holistic approach. Like I said, doing the yoga, the Reiki, anything that they can get themselves out of the current environment.
Okay. And now what, for people just starting out, what's a good, I guess, what steps can people take from a food perspective? Like if they, are just starting out, just making that initial decision that, okay, well, I've got to recover from this addiction. What are some first steps?
The first step is to think about one food or one experience you had with food that you loved, and might not be able to recreate that experience, but to whatever food that was, even if it wasn't necessary, if it was an apple pie, apple pie is okay, but it might not be the healthiest choice, but take that apple, get that apple pie, something, so it brings you back to who you were before, all this happened. And it's, it gives you kind of a sense, that there's something else to look forward to, there's something else that I have there. And so starting with that one thing, and then, building from there, what is, as journaling about how you felt eating the apple pie. So it kind of brings up positive feelings about food and about yourself, because any food experience can be a positive food experience.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And on that note, what does that expression, positive food experience, mean to you?
Positive food experience means basically being to enjoy the process of what you're eating, enjoying the food, taking time to really have a relationship with your food, even if it's just a simple plate, salad, just like enjoying the colors, the presentation of it, how it tastes, the smell, how it's going to, assimilate to your body, that, what has happened for that food to get to your plate, being grateful for it. If it's, if you have some chicken there, being grateful for the animal who, had to sacrifice for you to have that food. Just having, appreciation for all that has went into the creation of that. And it can be simple, like it could be an apple. There's so many different kinds of apples. I mean, and so many that's that apple is never going to be made again. There's the same, every apple is different, just appreciation of it. So any food experience can be a positive food experience in the sense that if you appreciate it, and you love your food because the food is going into your body, and that's the energy that you're creating and the energy that you're bringing out into the world.
Okay. So how can people create those positive food experiences? They're kind of, in what you're saying, they're kind of associating different foods with different memories, or how exactly do you think that they go about creating those positive food experiences?
Well, one is like, like I said, with the apple, having the apple pie, or whatever it may be, rice pudding from your father, a special Thanksgiving dinner or Sunday dinner with grandma, having, coming back to that. So if they can have one positive food experience, they can have another. There's always something that you can make happen, whether, even if they have to feel like they had nothing ever in their life, you can create something for them in that moment.
Sure, absolutely. So I love that connection, how you're making that connection between, the food, they become healthier, they're more motivated to overcome their addiction. And that's fantastic what you're doing, and how many people you're impacting, and how, they can kind of pay it forward, I guess, as well. So how can people get a hold of you or get in contact with you for your coaching, whether they want to do in person or online, or just connecting with you, basically?
Well, they can either email me or call me, or I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. My email is Panacea 11@outlook.com. And then I have a website as well. And my phone number is 301-275-7374. But, I'm happy to, text as well. And basically, I'm here to help.
Okay, wonderful. That is amazing. Dianne, we really appreciate it. This has been so enlightening as far as making those connections. And I hope that people, whether they themselves need to be going through recovery or they have loved ones too, that they'll be able to kind of see your services as an avenue to start, and see food as an avenue to start in recovery.
Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate your time and having me on. I'm happy to be here and happy that I could help.